Today's lecture is about marine electrical questions and answers, which is left out by last lecture. Last lecture we have discussed about some questions, and in this, what is left out? That will be some of the questions is discussed here. We'll go to the lecture. So, marine electrical questions and answers. So in last lecture, we have seen what is static charge, what is static electricity, static charge, and what causes the static charge on board ship, and what is the prevention for static charge was elaborately seen in the last lecture. And in this, we are seeing what is electricity, dynamic electricity. The flow of charges in a conductor is defined as electricity. So charges are transferred from one end of the terminal to the other. It usually progresses from a positive to a negative terminal. The electron travel freely within the body since the nucleus holds them loosely. Electricity is measured in units of power called as watts. So it was named to honor James Watt. So it is a honor for James Watt, who invented the steam engine. So what is voltage? Voltage is the force provided to electron to push. So it is the force which drives the electron, which pushes the electron through the conducting wire. So voltage unit is volts. So what is current is? Current is the rate at which the electron flow. The rate at which the electron is flowing is called as the current. So the unit of current is SI unit of the current is ampere. So this is basics. Basics about the electricity. Next, we will go for the next slide. Let's see what is that. MSB safety. MSB safety elaborately I have explained from this link. If you click this link, you can see about MSB safeties, what is reverse power relays, what is preferential trip relay. Separately, I have done a lecture on this MSB safety. Now I can say some few points about it. Where the MSB panel board has to be placed, installed. So the installation process, proper ventilation, it should be in a raised platform, it should not get flooded, and there should not be any oil and gas pipe overhead of the over the MSB board. And other points are like MSBs, we have a dead front panel and open type panel. Dead front panels are more than 50 voltages. So that panel will have only the switch gears and meters. What are the meters? Voltmeter, ammeter, synchronous meter, which generator is in running condition, push buttons. So all the switch gears, what are the meters are present or only present in the front panel, that is dead front panel, which is more than 50 voltages. Remaining the live conductors are present at the back side of the panel. And how the MSB board is earthed, and what is a bonnet rod, and what is reverse power relay, what is preferential trip relay. These things was elaborately seen from this link. You can use this link and see what is MSB safety, which is very important. And the next one is alternator maintenance. So any maintenance, when we do any maintenance, first of all, we have to have some caution. What caution has to be taken? First caution is we have to put off the shut down the generator's prime mover. The power supply should be off, and lock off the starting systems. The next caution we can keep that the maintenance is under work is in progress. So these are the caution. Then lock off the circuit breaker and isolated the alternator electric heater. Tag the label on the switchboard. So these are the cautions we take before we do any maintenance. Key plywood maintenance work is under progress. Check the insulation resistance of stator and rotor winding. Measure the insulation resistance between rotor to earth, face to earth, stator to earth, face to face. So insulation resistance is measured by the instrument which is called as Megger. So sometimes this Megger, which is producing more than 500 volt, can damage the electronic devices. So we must be cautioned that electronic devices should not get damaged, because they are working with only few volts, very less number of volts. So Megger is used to measure the IR value, insulation. If insulation is very less, it may catch fire, it may get burnt, and it may catch fire. So it may get heated up. The lifespan of the windings will get over soon. So we have to be very important to check what is the insulation resistance. So these are the important steps is followed for the generator maintenance. When we go for the next slide, it is must at least 1 mega ohm. If mega reading as reasonable value, the windings are to be covered with high quality air drying insulation varnish. So if we have mega ohm of insulation resistance, and that is good. If it is less than that, we have to try to remove the dust particles which is present inside the winding. Any maintenance, the first option is we have to clean it first. So clean and remove the dust particles, do dry insulation varnishing, and try to improve the insulation resistance. If further it is not improved, then you have to check the winding. If any winding breakage is there, then you have to rewind the system. So IR is very important. And next is air gap between the stator and the rotor to be checked and maintained between 1.5 to 2 mm. The air gap between the stator and the rotor. For suppose an induction motor, there should be a proper air gap. Induction motor is a self-starting machine. Because of the air gap, it is becoming self-starting machine. There is always a relative speed between difference between the stator and the rotating magnetic field, the rotor and the rotating magnetic field. So this air gap is very important, that we have to maintain it with 1.5 to 2 mm. Slip rings to be checked for even wear down to be renewed if required. So slip rings sometimes due to spark can get wear down, so that has to be checked. And even the carbon brushes has to be cleaned and checked for the free movement. So the pressure of the brush is being checked by the spring balance. We have to check it by the spring balance. It should be in a proper pressure so that it can move freely. And AVR to be checked and cleaned of oil and dust. AVR is automatic voltage regulator, which is present in the generator. Normally, the generator's output voltage may differ. It may dip, or it may get surged because of the loading, because of loading and unloading condition, because of sudden loads. There may be a change in the output of the generator. So that time the AVR will help. For the normal loads, it has to help plus or minus 2.5 percentage of the voltages being given by this AVR. And if it is a heavy loads like we can thrusters or cranes, then 10 to 15% plus or minus 10 to 15% of the voltage has been regulated, so that it should be a constant output voltage. So the AVR is trying to maintain the constant output voltage. So we have some of the electronic devices which is connected to the AVR. So we have amplifiers, we have sensors, comparators. So these things, diodes, SCRs. So these things has to be checked for continuity test, and whether it is having any dust particles, that has to be checked properly. So these are all points to be taken care at the time of alternator maintenance. So hope you understood. We can go for the next slide. So next is inspect the tightness of the terminal connection and insulation. If there is no, don't have a proper tightness, it may get vibrate, and it can produce some noise. So it should be properly fitted. So we have to check for the tightness of the terminals. Check the bearing oil level and the condition. Clean the cooling air intake filter and exhaust opening. So this air intake filters and exhaust openings has to be checked. Clean the rotor and the stator winding by means of industrial vacuum cleaner with a rubber hose and nozzle. So normal vacuum cleaners should not be used for the winding. This is called industrial vacuum cleaner, which is having rubber hose and nozzle, which will protect the winding. It will not damage the winding. And if the oil is deposited on the surface of the winding, so open the drain plug and then remove by special degreasing liquid, electro cleaner. So by using that, we can remove the oil. So these are the important points to be taken care at the time of alternator maintenance, starting from the caution, what caution has to be taken, and after that step by step cleaning work, dust removal work, then insulation resistance checking, then what is the air gap, then what is about the brush, what is about the slip rings, and tightness checking, and these are the points to be covered for the alternator maintenance. We can go for the next. Baking the alternator with a lamp. Keep a temperature not more than 43 degrees centigrade. So the temperature should not go more than 43 degrees centigrade. So disconnect the neutral point from the terminal box. Cable clamp to be checked for integrity. So these are the procedure for alternator maintenance. After the maintenance, what has to be done? Reassemble. Whatever the portion is dismantled has to be reassembled, all necessary parts. Check no load condition. First, we have to run the generator with no load testing. Then step by step, we can add some loads and synchronize it. So on load, practically check for excessive temperature rise and rated current, rated voltage, and we have to check for the stability when it is running in parallel condition. So these points are taken care when it is after the maintenance work. So these are the points we say for the alternator maintenance. Hope you understood about this question. And what is next? Next is what is AVR. So about AVR, as we have said already in some lectures, I have explained it. AVR is automatic voltage regulator. So it is present in the generator. Whenever there is a sudden load current surges, when we on many motors, suppose if there is a cargo charging or discharging, they want to make many cranes to be on, there is an overloading condition. So that time generator wants to give more power, there will be some fluctuation in the output voltage when suddenly we can normally see in our home also by the time of evening when we all put off the fans or by ACs at the time of summer season, there will be some fluctuation in the voltage. That is the normal thing, no? That is the normal fluctuation, that is called surges. So this cannot be prolonged. We cannot use it with low voltage or high voltage. Plus or minus some percentage is okay for the equipment for, but long time run we cannot make that to be happen because the torque flux, these things will vary and that will damage the windings. So we have to maintain the proper output voltage because that is given to other loads. So properly the equipment has to run with that voltage. So this is due to internal voltage drop in the generator winding, and the effect is usually called voltage dip. Voltage dip, or suddenly when we off at the time of winter season, if I'm putting off many ACs or these things, then there will be less voltage also. It can be voltage more or less. That this output imbalance, the output imbalance is being checked by the AVR and it is being regulated. That is automatic voltage regulator. If it is a normal voltage, normal load, plus or minus 2.5 percentage of the voltage is being corrected. And if it is going to be uh, more loads like we say thrusters or cranes, then it is going to be less or minus 10 to 15 percentage of the voltage is being corrected. So we have some types also. What is static AVR, electronic amplifier AVR, carbon pile regulator, vibrating contact regulator, rotating sector, multi-contact, magnetic amplifiers. So in my next lecture, I'll say about what is this AVR working, how this static AVR is working, electronic amplifier, carbon pile regulators are working. That separately I will give the circuit diagram and explain the working. Now this question is about what is AVR, what for AVR, and what are the types of AVR. The working principle will be seen later. Okay, then we'll go for fluorescent lamp works. This is a very simple topic, fluorescent lamp, low pressure vapor lamp working, but some of them do not know with how the choke is working, what is the working principle of a starter. So this lecture I have already done, the link is given. You can please go and see, listen to that to understand better about the fluorescent lamp working, how the sodium vapor lamp is working. So next is about, that's very important. If electrical machine flooded with seawater, what will happen if electrical machine is flooded with seawater? So check for isolation. First of all, put off the power supply and check for isolation. And once it is getting isolated, the machine is disconnected from the power sources, we have to check for de-energize. Some of the HV systems, they will have some voltage present even if you isolate it from the power supply. So we have to be very careful with that. We have to de-energize the system and dismantle it. So when it is flooded with seawater, what are the procedures to be taken? So this is also an important question. So check the isolation. Machine is disconnected from the power sources and dismantled. Salt and rust the winding laminations. So salt can rust the winding lamination. We all know that the seawater is a salty water. So that will easily rust the equipments. So on board ship, the environmental condition is it's a very challenging one. We have different environmental conditions. So this type of salt water can rust the equipment very easily. So this can rust the windings, laminations. So all the salt deposits should be washed out with the fresh water. So dismantle the equipment, take the stators and rotors, and you have to immerse it for 8 hours in the fresh water. There's a point here it is given. And you have to immerse it for 8 hours in the fresh water, continuously agitate the water, disturb the water continuously, soak the stators and rotors. So take the fresh water and first clean the stator and rotor. So it has to be out from the salt deposit because salt will rust the winding. So if deposited with the oily bilge water, wash out with electro cleaner. If we have oil deposition, then that has to be cleaned with electro cleaner. And after all these procedures are done, drain the water. We have to drain it and we have to wipe it. We have to heat it with a lamp and enclosed or covered up to retain the heat. And we must cover it to retain the heat. The heat has to be there so that there is no water present in the machine, right? So these are important point. First we have to check the isolation, whether the power supply is removed from the equipment, and after disconnecting from the power sources, we have to de-energize it and we have to dismantle it. Now after dismantling it, the salt deposit should be washed with fresh water. So you have to immerse the stators and rotor at least for 5 hours in the fresh water and continuously agitate the water. And if you have still oil present in the equipment, then you have to clean it with electro cleaner and drain the water. And then after that, heat it with a lamp and cover it with the heat to be get retained. We can go for the next. Next also we have some points for electrical machines. This is point, wipe it and put a hot air gun blower, the controlled heating such as oven, dryer, cargo cluster lamp. So this picture is a cargo cluster lamp. I have shown a picture. This is cargo cluster lamp and this is called hot air gun blower. So from here it is given to the motors. The hot air is given to the motors. The motors will get heated up. So it will dry out the water which is present inside the motor. So these are the two important things: a wipe it and put a hot air gun blower. So I have shown it in the picture. Or the controlled heating such as oven is used, dryer is used, or cargo cluster lamp is used. The lamp will produce a heat, so that is cargo cluster lamp. And red varnish is at last, after doing all cleaning work, everything is completed, you have to check for the insulation. At the time of water content, the insulation will be only around 200 ohms. That is not sufficient insulation for running a motor, so that will not withstand current. So we have to check the insulation resistance by the instrument which is called Megger. After checking it, we have to varnish it. So for that, I have used this picture, red varnish. At last, so in next slide, I have the point. The picture is given here. So that is called red varnish. They are varnishing the windings. So that is one of the insulation. So moisture should be escaped by lifting the cover continuously or periodically. So if we heat and keep, sometimes the water droplets will be formed. So it should be covered continuously, and periodically we have to lift it. Hottest part of the machine shall not exceed 90 degrees centigrade while heating. So this rated temperature, one particular rated temperature, that has to be kept for 12 to 24 hours to check the condition of the machine. And the temperature should not exceed 90 degrees centigrade. So ball bearings must be replaced. Bearings has to be replaced. And any old grease it is used, then that has to be cleared, and we can refill with fresh grease. So all the grease which is will be contaminated because of that salt water and these things, so that has to be replaced, cleared with fresh grease. Very important. And they are measuring the insulation resistance, and the temperature is taken regularly. So they are checking the temperature, which should not go beyond the level. So it has to withstand the temperature. So until the constant value reaches about 1 mega ohm is the safety of that windings. So 1 mega ohm resistance, insulation resistance is required. Then we can say that spray the machine with red insulation. That's what in the previous slide I have shown the picture. We can go back and see the picture, how they are doing the varnishing for that windings. That is a red insulation varnish. Here I made this red insulation varnish. Next is assemble and out in service with low load if possible. So all the works is completed. Your equipment is ready now. Now we can assemble it, and step by step we can start it with a very low load, and we have to check what is the temperature, how it is running. So after rated voltage, rated current, everything is normal, then we can add some loads, more loads. So that this is the procedure has to be taken when the equipment is under the seawater flooding condition. So how the equipment is being again operated, how the maintenance work is done, and how the machine is again operated. Thank you all for listening to the lecture.